Hello friends, and welcome back to my next installment and breakdown of the recent watch that I purchased, the Girard-Perregaux Sea Hawk. The breakdown today, I'm going to focus on the actual bezel, okay, of the actual diver's watch, and a little bit about the case construction as well. Now, before I move on to those, there were a couple of things that I actually forgot to tell you about, guys, in the last video. And the last video I focused on the actual movement. Now, the movement I forgot to mention is a 4 Hertz movement. So it's beating at about 28,000 oscillations per hour. And that results in a really smooth sweeping flow of that seconds hand that you actually see there. The case itself is, sorry, not the case, the actual crystal is actually a sapphire glass, and you can see there it's a domed crystal, so it's lovely. I really love the way that the contouring of the rubber strap, when it then meets the actual metal case, goes over the actual bezel, and how that sort of shape just continues over. Really nice sapphire glass there, and the actual form of it. Now, the only thing that I would actually say is that on the actual piece, not a great deal of AR coating on there, so we do actually get quite a few sort of reflections on there. So that's a little niggle, but I'm going to do another video that focuses on the niggles that I have towards this particular high-end Swiss piece. Now, moving on to the actual bezel itself. The bezel knurling, and that's the sort of the grippy part that you can see there, it's actually really sharp, okay? Sharp in a good way, in the sense that, you know, I can operate it really well. And the actual bezel sort of mechanism, the ratcheting system that they've used, is one of the best that I've actually felt. No back play in the actual bezel itself. You know, I'm trying to move it backwards here, but the actual movement and the operation is just absolutely fantastic. Now, the actual bezel has this inlaid sort of rubberized, very light sort of rubberized detailing here that shows the breakdown of the actual diving sort of minutes, which is synonymous with divers' watches. We've got a loom pip there, and I did a loom shot in my previous video, so you can refer back to that one. The actual loom pip itself is surrounded by, it looks to be a ceramic sort of circular framing insert there, and overall the bezel is really nice, really textured, really grippy, so I can grip it and turn it. The actual case itself I really like. It's a real modern take of the Sea Hawk. The previous Sea Hawk was a similar sort of shape but more rounded and contoured, and what they've done with this one is they've just sort of raise the profile by sort of having some quite sort of sharp angles, and the angles there are sort of reflected in the sort of joining parts of the actual case itself, and we can see here that the shaping or the aesthetics really lends itself to the integrated rubber strap.
Friends, are you enjoying the video so far? If so, please consider liking and subscribing, and please let me know if there's anything I can improve for your viewing content.
What's really nice about the actual case construction is the brushing that they've got going on. So we've got this sort of grained brushing that runs in this direction, but then when you look at the case here, we can actually see that the brushing moves upwards. So that's a really nice detail and feature there. We do have a helium escape valve, an automatic helium escape valve, because obviously this diver's watch is rated to 1,000 meters. So obviously the lower down you go, and whenever you do saturation diving, I believe the helium as you go lower down is much more thinner than air, so it can actually get into the actual case. So that valve is there to actually release the helium as you sort of come back to the surface. The case itself, it is a hefty watch. I would probably say it's between, I haven't measured it, but it's probably between 150 to 170 grams. So it is quite heavy. It could even be heavier than that. It's a solid case back, so you don't get to see that lovely Girard-Perregaux movement there, and because it's a solid case back, then that's what allows it to have that depth rating of 1,000 meters. What's really nice here is we can see that sort of serpent style creature with the sort of anchor stroke trident there, and that's been machined out, and you can actually see how deep that machining is on that aesthetic sort of detail. So that's probably taken quite a bit of time on the old CNC machine there. We can see the Girard-Perregaux detailing there, engraving on the actual solid case back, and overall, the case, the construction, how the sort of the rubberized insert there, which is below the bezel, how that all sort of fits into place there. It's really done to a high standard and high spec. Coated rubber bezel, a crown there as well. That's probably going to be in one of the features where I talk about my little niggles about the watch. I really hope that the rubber sort of lasts and tests the sort of or goes beyond the test of time, but it's a Girard-Perregaux. It's a high horology piece, so I'm assuming that the rubber and the materials that they've used is to a really high standard there. So overall, in terms of the bezel, the case, the crown, and the way that it's been constructed, the stainless steel that they've used, it's feels a really high quality product, and the actual construction, so far, I don't have any sort of major issues with, just some slight niggles, and that's what I'll be focusing on some future videos that I do.